When I got saved, one of the first things I did, I was going to start reading the Bible. So I opened to Genesis. And I find this very interesting as I look back now. I was reading Genesis and I got a couple books into the law and I just couldn't read it anymore. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. This is so weird, and maybe you're like, well, I don't think it was weird. For me, it was. And so I just said, I'm going to move ahead for a while. And I eventually got into the New Testament and I started reading about the Gospels, about Jesus and about the book of Acts. And I went into the letters, right? Well, then when I finished Revelations, I went back into the Old Testament and it was no longer boring. It was no longer confusing because now Christ had become the lens, because Christ is the finished work. He is the complete story, the complete truth. He is the full puzzle in its full glory. So I was able to go back and see the pieces in the Old Testament and put them where they were supposed to be. Guys, we have to be careful about making a whole doctrine and theology off Old Testament scriptures and not involve Christ in it at all. He has to be the lens we look at. Again, I love the book of Job. Why? When I first read it, I was like, this seems like this book was a mistake to put in the Bible. Now, I know that sounds terrible, but it didn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense why it was in the Bible. It just seemed so contradictory to everything. But I spent like 3 or 4 months in Brazil one year, and I said, I'm going to understand this book. Guys, it's one of the best books in the Bible because what it does is it shows the need for mankind. It shows their need for a savior. It shows their need for a mediator with God in their lives. The Old Testament is looking to Calvary. We as Christians, we stand on the other side of Calvary and we look back into the Old Testament. We see the realities of what really there. He takes the veil off our eyes. I wrote about the book of Job and what was the real message of the book of Job. And you might be a little shocked, you might be a little challenged by what you find in it because it's not what I've heard in the pulpits. I heard a lot of pulpit preaching on the book of Job as if the veil was still over the eyes of the Old Testament and Christ had not been revealed. But if you're interested in knowing that book, there's a link in the description below. Take a look at it, get a copy. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. But guys, Job was crying out for a mediator. He was crying out for someone to be a standby for him and his relationship with God. He knew in himself he was depraved and he did not have the ability to approach God, no matter how righteous he thought he was. He had no standard. He had nothing to stand on. And that is what he was doing. He was crying out for a Jesus. We look back and we go, we have the thing that Job cried out for.